Primos y primas, que lo que, welcome, bienvenidos to the Dear God Are We There Yet, the podcast con tu prima favorita. Soy Alicia Sanchez, and yes, this podcast is bilingual, empowering social good one conversation at a time, sharing weekly insights and inspirations from people adding their magic to make this world a better place. Whether you want to learn more about volunteer travel, being more socially conscious, or you love a good conversation that breaks down barriers while evoking pasión and emoción, this is the podcast for you. Grab a cafecito y vamos a hablar. Primos y primas, que lo que, Happy New Year. Wow, 2021. Just saying that alone makes me just think how time flies. It was just the other day that it was 1995 and I was in fifth grade. um, no, seriously, I think that ever since the millennial, time frame 2000 came, I think that just the years have been just flying by, and we are in a new year, and we need a new year. We need a new time. We need a new change. 2020, goodbye. Like, adios, hasta luego. So, dear God, what's Brainwash 2021? Now, before I even get into today's podcast, because we're going to be talking about detoxing our mind with, positive brainwashing. And I've been doing so much reading lately, various books, even fun books, because sometimes it's good to just get away from all the self-help books, or even getting away from I don't even know, just the stuff, the noise, um and the noise of, self-help books or business books or nonprofit books or helping the world or whatever the case is. It's good to just sit back sometimes with a nice novel and pretend with Lily Faliller, whatever, that lives in whatever state, falling in love or whatever the case is. I actually don't read those books, those romantic books. I might give it a try now that I'm talking about it. Bueno, primo y prima, antes que yo quiero, before we get into the episode, que lo que? Like, for real? Que lo que? How are you guys doing? Please go ahead, and if you're listening to, this is season 4, and I want to thank every single one for listening. I'm going to keep thanking you guys because we have been running this podcast, and it's crazy because 2020, it's a crazy year, right? Crazy year was the year that we actually started monetizing our brand. I'm sorry, monetizing our podcast. That the podcast alone, like having monetization, and not just from, shout outs, but just monetizing from you listeners. And I know that might sound icky to say it, but you guys listening, no matter where you're listening from, no matter what country you're from, because we get the analytics and we see, and estoy tan sorprendida because sometimes I'm like, what? There's listeners in Saudi Arabia that are listening to this podcast? So, que lo que, my gente in Saudi Arabia, or any other country or state that's tuning in. You have no idea how much it means to me. The podcast, we have been kicking for 3 years, 3 seasons, and this is our 4th season. I don't necessarily do it in years, but 3 years literally since we started. And then I started to kicking it into the different seasons. And so, wow, like, season 4 is here. I'm so excited. And I have so much to be sharing with you guys. And I'm going to be, this season, I am going to be a little bit more raw. I mean, I want to ask you, what is your mission statement for the year? I know when you hear the word mission statement, you think to yourself, oh, that sounds like a business or a business plan, but we should all have a mission statement for ourselves. And what that does is, I heard this actually, shout out to Peloton, because I was taking a spinning class, and the trainer was like, the best CEOs in the world, or, the people always go back to their mission statement, their why. Your mission statement is your why. Whatever that is, whatever you learned, whatever lesson you learned that you needed to learn in 2020, 2021 is for you not to repeat whatever it is that you didn't want to do or planning. Um, so So, whatever it is in 2020 that you want to let go or you want to plan differently, a lot of you, and I'm going to get into the topic, it's a topic they always is about brainwash. When we think about that word brainwash, we think always to a negative connotation. We always talk about the media brainwashing us. I know I've been reading books about nonprofits and, how they have this, some nonprofits, take advantage of people, or they manipulate people. They have uh, this God power that they think they feel, and they take advantage of communities and the people's needs, or poor people, etc. And we have all these thoughts, and we say these are all brainwashed, and we don't ever look at it as a how can we brainwash ourselves for a positive? How can we detox our mind to think positive? And the number one thing I hear as a person every time I try to be really super positive about something is, well, are you being realistic? Oh, the life is not always roses and unicorns. And being positive doesn't mean that. Detoxing your mind is understanding that you can get brainwashed in a positive reinforcement. You can think of things and look at it from a different point of view, and you can choose to look at it from a different point of view, no matter what the facts are. And um, I'm going to be talking about, there's three elements in this whole detox of your mind. And yeah, I'm coming strong with this week's, the first episode here of the season, because 2021 is something that is going to teach us to be bold, and it's going to teach us to be sensational, and it's going to teach us to continue that resilience in a different way, because 2020 has taught us so much. And so think about that mission statement as we're talking about that today. Think about how you're going to detox your mind, and having a nonprofit, and trying to grow that nonprofit, and trying to help people, because that's what volunteering is all about. We're all helping each other. It's not mine, it's ours. And coming from a different mindset, and from my personal life, or learning about my family traits, and we're going to talk about all that in this season, because I feel like helping people help others, and self-conscious, social consciousness comes from being conscious of what we say and do and treat and rehearse in our minds. And so I'm coming strong for today's episode, and I really want you guys to just share this episode with someone if you feel like you found something, because these are all nuggets. These are not my words. And I will make sure that on the bottom of this podcast, I will give everybody their credit so they won't be like, you didn't say that, you didn't know I didn't say that. These are all sources from things that I've been reading, but also just digging deep and asking questions about certain things. There's three elements about brain. We think about brainwashing, and there's three types of truths. There is personal truth, there is political truth, and there's objective truth. And this scientist, and I'm going to put his name because for some reason I cannot, is at the tip of my tongue, and I can't even tell you guys who he is right now. But he talks about this in Masterclass, and actually check out Masterclass. I don't get paid to tell you anything about Masterclass, but what's really good is that you guys can hang out with some really amazing people and learn from them. And there's authors, there's you name it. I mean, they teach you voice acting, storytelling, basketball, cooking, anything. So check them out. Even RuPaul's on there. But again, I'm not getting paid for them. But I definitely want to tell you guys a little bit about my where I'm getting this information from, which his name is Neil deGrasse Tyson, and he teaches scientific thinking and communication. And what I love to hear about him is that we have, again, personal truth, a political truth, and objective truth. An objective truth. And he says that we can go into this dark hole that we go on Google, and what happens is when we put something on Google, it can be, it's basically confirmation bias. Whatever it is that we are researching, it can go either way based on, of course, the technology and that and the systematic behind that. How do we as a human can detox our mind with positivity when we have a world around us that can cause confusion based on communication and science and all these other things and facts. And he clearly says that, you can't science is something that you can't, it's like facts, like you can see it, and then you can't go based on that. It cannot be objective of any way if it doesn't show you. But how does that show up in our life? How does that show up in your life, in your mission statement, and for 2021, and everything around us that we've learned in 2020? How can we take that to detox things, information, and how we communicate, and think of it and put a spin on it into making it positive? You know, I'm constantly talking about certain aspects of positivity because I do live my life like that. And sometimes it's not always a good thing. And I think that's where balance comes in. But I always try and I choose to see the brightest side in everything in life. And the reason why I try to choose to see the brightest side is because it's it's kind of like it clashes with me to think any other way, um, because of maybe my religious, because of faith, or because of spirituality, or because of experience. And so, yes, I do know what the truth could be, or what the possibilities could be, but I try to go around and just immediately think positive. But how can I detox my brain? How can I gain all the thoughts and take them all, strip every aspect of my mind for that moment, for that thought, for that situation, and say to myself, how can I rewire my brain, brainwash my brain with thoughts and words and affirmations or sentences and things that are going to help me continue to question, but at the same time, help me develop those emotions that I need to be able to get through whatever. I want to tell you guys a quick story because I don't want to make this podcast super long as always, but I want to give you guys really good nuggets, of what I've been getting, especially with working as a nonprofit, and really trying to build the nonprofit into more than what that is. And we have this model that, we want to be self-sustainable. And people always ask me, well, what do you mean? You don't want to ask people for donations or grants? And I'm like, look, that's not my first instinct of how opening a nonprofit. Like, that's not the first thing that I want to think about. In order for me to survive, I have to rely on donations or grants, or I want to be self-sustainable as a nonprofit. The same way that I want to teach self-sustainability in all these other communities. And when I say that, I'm not necessarily saying, grow your food and solar yeah, I'm not saying all these other things like, the solar panels and all that stuff and your water. I'm not saying that. Self sustainability as a whole, with your finances, or providing a service, or providing value to the communities, and having those communities help on and on and on. We're going to be talking, and thank you, so you're still listening. We're going to be talking about this season about, and I'm just going to get into my example, but we're going to be talking about in more in depth of what I mean throughout this entire season about detoxing your mind and rewiring it, the brainwash of positivity, because of all these external things of what we should and what we must, and because they did it or because they didn't do it, or whatever the case is. Um, there's fact, there will always be fact. Science says, or not science, but it's a fact that nonprofits that gain assistance from donations and grants become successful, blah, blah, blah. This is a great example. It is a fact. It doesn't mean that you can't create a new fact. It doesn't mean, like, if you're a scientist, that you can't come up with a new hypothesis, a new discovery, a new in your life. That's what happens now. We think about all these different instances and experiences that have happened in 2020, and we think about it and we go based on the only fact that we hear, the only couple of facts that we hear. But why can't we discover our new fact? Why can't we come up with a new discovery for ourselves, for our life? Because everything in this world is not always going to pertain to us, and it might not pertain to us. It could be how we react to whatever it is that's happening. So I'll go back to my example so I don't lose you. But nonprofits, that's a fact. So every time I approach some information, or my team, we're emailing people, that's the first thing they come up with. And I just say, stop, stop, stop. I want to introduce something different. Not to say that other people, other nonprofits are not doing it, because guess what? They are, and I'm happy for them. But I want to take away the stigma of the people that see nonprofits and they put their head up because they're like, oh, they're just going to take our money and they're going to use this, blah, blah. Or, oh, they're taking a trip to a volunteer travel trip. Oh, it's just like the other, ones. Like, we can change that. And that's the first step of detoxing our mind and bringing in, brainwashing it into positivity. Like, you choose to do certain things in your life, regardless of what there's fact. Fact is, if you don't have your seatbelt on, you could get in a car accident and and get into a car accident and pass away. You could. There's a fact. That is a fact, right? So does that pertain to you? Heck yeah, it does pertain. If you don't want to wear your seatbelt, you know that could happen, right? So that's an instant that's a scenario that's like that's a fact. Like, nobody can tell me and nobody can tell you, even if you're going 2 miles per hour. Every instance, every science tells us that that can happen. And that's why, in the 70s, in the 60s, 70s, they introduced certain, ways of keeping kids safe with seatbelts. So let's go back to the nonprofit world. No one can tell me that that's the only fact of how a nonprofit could be successful. Nobody can tell you that's the only way that you will be successful is you stay with that company or you raise your child this way, that there's a matter of fact that that child's going to come out a certain way, or that you do this for your children and they're going to come out this way, or you're going to do this for your parents, or whatever it is, or even your neighbor, your community. These are all different facts based on people's community, based on people's experiences. My point is you are the creator of your world. You can look at all these different things, like Degrassi was saying. You can look at personal truth, your own personal truth. You can look at political truth. You can look at the at objective truth. But what is the key in objective truth? Like, what is that? Is it boggled in? Is our truth a whole bunch of truths that just come together? Is it because we hang around with 10 people and they tell us that something is that, and that's it? We're just gonna be like, yep, that's it. No, we have to be able to say to ourselves, that is how we need to detox our mind. The way we detox our body, we detox every part of our lives. We got to do that with our mind. And I'm coming to you really strong with this podcast today because, I'm learning so much about nonprofits and communities and helping other people and financials and how much they give to these communities and what the facts state of what's happened and what hasn't happened and the impact that it does and how it impacts negatively instead of positively and this God complex and all these different things. And I say to myself, how can I detox my mind from these facts that could be, yes, it absolutely is a fact. How can I change that into create my own fact, my own hypothesis? It's like, think of yourself as you're doing this every single day, as you are your own scientist, right? Think of it. Like, just think about it in your mind. If you are driving to work, or if you're working from home because COVID, whatever the case is, and you want to try something different and you want to do something new. And the minute that you want to do something, because of course, Google, and if you share it on social media or you tell your friends or family, there's always going to be those little commentaries that are going to come and it's going to present you with their objective truth, their personal truth, their political truth, or the fact, or a fact that well could be a fact, but does it have to be your fact? So, Primos y Primas, today I wanted to leave you with that. Like, think about how are you going to detox your mind? And it's constantly. It's not like you do it once and that's it. I'm learning that. I mean, I'm learning this, and I'm learning something new every day, and it's which I love. I mean, I can read the same book and get a different meaning 100 different times. You know, I talked to my mom the other day, and I'm like, Mom, I said, Mommy, did you know? And I was telling her da da da, and she's like, but I told you that. I could have told you that. She told me that. She's like, but I told you that. I told you. I'm like, yes, you told me that. I don't want to take it away from you that you taught it from me. You told me that, but I'm in a different point in my life that I'm seeing it a little bit differently. You know, she told me something about, when she was raising me and, being the only girl and all this stuff. And, I have a daughter. So I'm like, yeah, you told me that. But I was, I'm a different mom than I was when the baby was born than now, completely. And it's okay. Like, just because somebody tells you, well, I told you so, or who told you that wasn't going to work, or whatever the case is. And I'm talking like that because I'm trying to have an external conversation. But you have to tell yourself, like, that's okay. There's information that you can process at different times. Maybe you detoxed your mind and now you're looking at it in a different positive light. Maybe you're looking at it in an objective truth, or a political point of view, or whatever it is. You guys have to check him out. He's in masterclass, and I took a little preview, and I'm actually going to take his full class because this is something, especially with like communication, that I'm just learning about, not just from a. I've always been the person that I don't know anything. I don't know everything, and I don't know anything. And what I knew 5 minutes ago, I'm going to interpret it probably 5 minutes later completely different, depending on where I stand, and if my mind is I need a detox. And detox in in regular terms and everyday terms could be meditation. People do, they pray, they chant, um, they write affirmations, they write it in a journal. There's so many different types of detox that people do for their mind. They sing, they have an accountability partner or a friend or somebody they confide in, or even a therapist. They detox those emotions the same way we detox trauma. All these different things, we have to think about how we're going to detox our mind into this positive brainwashing, because we have control of that, because we are the scientists of certain things. We can create a new fact about our lives and a new fact about what we want in our lives, and how we can perceive things that, even though it's a fact, can we change it and create a new fact? Absolutely. I loved what the scientist said about and it was had to be about, like, I think coronavirus or whatever. I briefly heard it on in a podcast, and he was saying that a scientist is always going to be in discovery. He's always going to be in a discovery mode. Like, even he found a hypothesis of something and he came up with, he's still going to question what he just came up with based on the what if. And that is how we can look at our detox process for our mind and say, how can I look at the situation? Then what if? And something that will, um, you can think about it a little bit clearly is, like, a lot of people in 2020, they weren't financially prepared to be hit with, like, nobody's ever really prepared, but there's lots of different things that we can do to prepare for what ifs, right? Financial savings, some type of stability or security, whatever the case is. But how do we do that? Well, we have to do it when it's not in a tragedy, right? We have to think, it has to be part of our DNA every single day. It has to be part of our thoughts. It has to be part of our mission statement. So I want to leave you with that there's going to be a lot of noise. It's a new year. We have a new president. We have a lot of new of everything. But regardless of all the newness, you are always creating. And as long as you constantly detox your mind, and I want to give you a disclosure, I am not a therapist. I am nothing like that. I'm just a girl who likes to read, who likes to explore, who likes to ask questions, and likes to think things from a different point of view, and trying to understand myself and why I'm always this, you know, low key unicorn. Even though I need balance, of course, we all need balance. But just leaving that with that for today's podcast. And if you want to be on our podcast, because I am always interested in sharing the magic that you are doing for the world, or to talk, just to have a conversation, you can email us at hello@deargotaweedavia.com. Hasta la próxima. Until next week. Have a nice one. Bye. Huepa! Thank you for tuning in. Show us your love and join the conversation on one of our redes sociales, social media. Leave a podcast review and be sure to tune in next week. ¿Y qué ahora? What's next? Check out our website and volunteer today. We have so many virtual volunteer opportunities, and remember, you can be a part of the change in a changing world. Hasta la próxima. Besos!